What is up? The boys are back. This is the No BS Golf Show. It's your boy Brad Thomas here with Chris Mills. And if you cannot tell, I am losing or lost and getting it back my voice. Yes, your boy was on his deathbed the past 2 days, but did not stop me from watching the RBC Heritage and handicapping this week's Zurich Classic. Chris, I missed you, my man. How did the weekend go for you?
Honestly, it was a good weekend. I would say that I saved a lot because JT started so quick. You know me, I like to kind of grab things live, but there
Yep.
wasn't too much value, come Friday morning. Sprinkled on a couple guys, but honestly, I just didn't. There was no opportunity for me to kind of get after it. And then, coming down the stretch on Sunday, it was pretty much a two-man race. I had a little bit on Scotty because when he jumped up to, I think it was 40-1, I said, I mean, you have to on a
Yeah.
Sunday. But that water ball, that second shot out of the sand, I mean, just a terrible decision on that hole. I don't think he would have got to 17 under, but it is what it is. But no, I'm happy for JT. Honestly, I didn't see that coming. I knew we've talked about this. We knew he was going to win eventually.
Yep.
I didn't think it would be on this course, however, because he was fighting the driver a little bit of late.
Yeah.
So yeah, happy for him.
I was JT was on my short list, but I went really short with my card this week, 2 golfers, and I didn't want to add another 20-1 golfer when I already made the choice to take Cantlay at 1950, and I couldn't go JT as well. It's funny to see JT's odds. Friday morning were plus 250. Sunday morning or Saturday night plus 250. The books were really protective, and it kind of felt like he was going to win. Members of the Discord were able to cash on JT. They literally just go, Brad, who's going to win the tournament? I said JT. His odds are plus 250. I couldn't see anyone else catching him. Our guy put up a good fight, Mr. Novak, but didn't get the job done there. I thought he, oh my god, I for sure thought he was going to win with that putt on 18. Missed it, and then it happens when you go up against a guy like JT in a playoff. There's a
Yeah,
reason why he was minus 155. I only made one placement bet this week, last week, and we won. That was Mr. JT posted top 20. So I think the bugaboo of placement bets are behind me. That's back-to-back weeks being profitable in the placement market. But my outrights did not get there, pre-tournament outrights. But dude, let's talk about the
the placements were good for me last week. Actually,
oh
we went
yeah?
three. So I had Berger to win his group at plus 320.
Okay.
That was a nice cash. And then we had I thought you had this one as well, but maybe not. Brian Harmon top 20 for plus
Oh,
160.
crap. I had Brian Harmon, so I went 2-0. I totally forgot I had him top 30.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we got him top 20 at plus 160. So that was a nice smack. And then obviously when I'm fading JT, he goes up and wins the tournament because I had Cantley over JT. That was at minus 110. So we went 2 for 3, did well. Our matchups were insane. I went 5 for 6 on Saturday with a
Wow.
tie, and then on Sunday lost one. One of 7, which one 6 wins, one tie, and one loss. So matchups are coming back to me. I
That's
was
good.
struggling with those for a bit,
Yeah.
so it's good to kind of find my stride again.
Dude, I I played a couple matchups and, actually, wait, let me tell you about this. The first day I played matchups and dog awful, uh, horrible, like, probably as bad as you possibly could do. I think I went 1 and 4. Uh, People were like, "Brad, you should probably quit," the nonsense you get, and then I pivoted. I thought the round scores were too generous, and I swept round scores, 4-0 the next day with a couple multi-unit ones. I think sometimes the sports book fail to adjust based on weather, and they just have this notion that the course is gonna dry out, it's gonna dry out faster, but with no sun in the forecast early in the day, the course is gonna take longer to dry out, and we were able to take advantage of it with anybody in a morning tee time that played on what was that, Thursday on Friday. So that was pretty good. I'll have to say I forgot all about that because then I ended up getting sick and, it was miserable, but anything else you wanna highlight from the tournament before we, do a quick preview and bring in our guest?
No, I mean, the only thing I would say is keep an eye on Novak, man. He's having a heck of a year. He opened up at this tournament at 120-1, which in a short field, granted, there's a lot of big names there. I mean, he's proven that he can hang. I'm curious if what you think about that putt on 18. Did he misread it, or was that 100% nerves? He didn't even hit the hole. Like, it
It was
wasn't.
nerves. It was 100% nerves. Like,
Yeah,
I think he just felt how close it was in his grasp. And, I went back and I looked. Last year, I bet Novak a lot. I've only bet him twice this year. Once he was in contention, the other time I think he didn't even make the cut. But the dude's playing really good golf, and I feel like he's just one of those golfers that's not gonna get the respect he deserves in the odds market until he finally wins. So I
yeah,
think, like, if you start betting him in the each way market, you'll start to get some value because he's turning into a freaking really good golfer. I like
yeah,
how his short game's improving too, and courses that fit his eye, right? Like, where it's kind of the target golf that becomes the neutralizer of the wayward drive, because he's not really long enough to hit bad drives, right? If you're gonna be hitting bad drives, you have to be long enough to hit it past the trouble. But
yeah.
of course, that you have to play target golf. It neutralizes a lot of those golfers. I think he's gonna contend.
Totally agree.
Let's talk about Zurich Classic, TPC Louisiana teamed event. On Thursday, they play what, four ball, and then on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday they play foursomes. It's fun. It's a lot of fun. I like to fade guys who drink a lot, party a lot. You'll see those. I'll post them on X in tournament on Friday night. On Thursday night, I'll go and I'll post. It happens every year. I like to target the new fathers, or the guys who just really aren't going to be in contention. Those guys like to turn it up in Avondale. This course is 7,400 yards, par 72. Pete Dye designed course. I just really targeted golfers who good ball strikers, and then kind of fit a couple of the course comps. I went with Accordia Golf, TPC Scottsdale, PJ National, San Antonio, and TPC Louisiana. This course as well. Any golfer profile that you were looking at?
Yeah, I kind of did the same. So obviously, Pete Dye type setup, site courses, horses for courses. These guys just tend to pop up right on leaderboards. But I also think with this format, going with guys who have played together previously, who know each other's games inside and out, who complement each other, that's huge, right? If you have two guys with very similar games, you don't typically see them do extremely well here.
Yeah.
So I think any sort of history, whether it be Ryder Cup, President's Cup, or someone who's just played this tournament before, or potentially just have a really close relationship, um, those are the type of guys that I see. And guys that you'd think no way they should be up on the leaderboard, somehow they just keep popping up year over year at this tournament. So some serious flyers this week with potential. But again, looking at Rory and Lowry at the top of that board, I mean that's pretty dangerous.
It's very dangerous. Plus, what, 360 on Hard Rock right now.
Yeah,
But before we get into more of the tournament, let's bring in our guest, Spencer Aguiar. And you can find him on at Tee Off Sports on X, two-time FSWA Golf Writer of the Year. Congratulations on that, Spencer, my friend. Thank you for joining the show.
I appreciate you guys having me. It's a pleasure to do this today.
We always like to start with a couple interview questions, break the ice here, and I'll kick things off. How did you get into golf writing and golf handicapping?
So I'm born and raised in Las Vegas. I grew up I was a professional poker player when I got into the space, and then I transferred over into the sports betting side of things. So I did that from 2011 to 2018. And then never played golf, played other sports. Golf wasn't necessarily the sport, but I got into the space covering football, basketball, college NBA, that is college basketball, golf, and a little bit of boxing. And I did that for about 2 to 3 years from 2018 to about 2020, a little bit around that COVID time when everything struck there. And, one of the things that I kind of realized, and you guys know this, and Brad, you know this, like I know your backstory a lot better with this. You do a lot of sports, and it's hard to do a lot of sports. You do a great job with what you do there. And one of the things I realized is I wasn't getting the notoriety that I wanted to get. I was having success, in football, and I was having success in all these areas, but I wasn't necessarily getting in the writing space where I wanted to be. So I ended up releasing my golf model, and that was kind of one of the first big steps that started getting me notoriety in the space. And then Rotoballer was the company that took a chance with me in 2018, and I've been there ever since with it. And one thing led to another, and I spent that whole 2020, 2021 only covering golf. And then you fast forward to 2022, and I got nominated for Golf Writer of the Year. up against Pat Mayo, who is the king of golf media in this space. Was fortunate enough to take down that title, and then this go around this year got nominated again and was fortunate enough to win that again. So, I always tell people it is a really difficult space to break into. You have to have grit. You have to push forward with it. It's a lot easier to do the handicapping side of it and be a sports bettor. It's a lot harder to get the publicity and the notoriety on this end of it, but I'm very happy with the career decisions I've made. And I've been with a lot of great companies along the way. I was with Action Network for a long time. Can't speak highly enough about them. They're really great at what they do. And then, as I said, I've been at Rotoballer since the beginning at 2018, and they're a great company that's been growing from the second I've been there.
I think that's pretty phenomenal, to not only be nominated, but to win twice, says a lot, and I did not know you were a ex-professional poker player, but when you said that, I can kind of tell it in the way you handicap, a very, I don't wanna say numbers oriented, but more probability, implied probability. A lot of handicappers don't use enough implied probability in their research, in their modeling, and you do a very good job of that. Follow-up question, based off what you just said, have you started playing golf since you've gotten to the golf space?
Very marginally. I actually posted about this the other day. I had not played for a couple years, and I went to a Dick's Sporting Goods with my girlfriend, and I was just messing around with the putter, and I can't putt. I mean, like, that's probably the best part of my game, if we're being honest with it. I definitely can't hit a driver, but I'm not a good putter. And I took one of the putters, a tailor-made putter, and I just started hitting it on the putting green, and I drained about 20 in a row with it. I was like,
Okay.
I have to buy this thing. This is something that I need to put into my bag. So bought it, went back out to one of the local courses that I have, went to the putting green there to try to mess around with it. Couldn't make a putt. Worst money I've ever spent in life. So didn't give me the boost that I was hoping it would.
That's phenomenal. I actually did that with my current putter. I was at, PGA Superstore, and I was, like, hitting everything, and I was like, I already knew what kind of face I wanted, and it fit the model, and then, like, for the first 3 or 4 rounds I played with it, I was so tempted just to go back to my old Odyssey putter. I was like, "This thing sucks. I can't make a putt to save my life." That's funny.
Yeah, I think they may be sloped to just go into the hole there to make you buy the
Yeah.
putter, is my theory on it.
They're like, "Yo, just come give us your money. You get a new putter every week because 'cause they're all going in. Then you
Yeah,
get to the course and you need to change it. That little honeymoon phase from the store to your car is over really fast."
Well, they
exactly.
definitely do that with the drivers, or if you're hitting irons into the big screen. All of a sudden, I'm hitting it 305 off the tee. When I get back out, go out and play on the course, I'm hitting it 235. Something's gotta give.
I do not hit those drivers at the PGA Superstore. I can't, because you 'cause you're hitting the best drive ever, no wind, no nothing. It's
Yeah.
down the middle of the fairway, then you get out to the course, you're like, "Oh my god, I just clipped a tree branch."
I gotta ask a question, follow up to that. As someone who's always been a golfer, I've been playing since 8 years old. Part of the passion and part of the reason I do this is because I know the game. I love the game. I appreciate the game. Um, so for me, yes, I use data. Yes, I do what I can to kind of give myself a leg up, right, going into my research and going into my picks. But a lot of what I do is feel. I feel like, which is a little bit different. And part of that is because I play golf, because I can notice trends. I can see a guy, maybe he didn't put up a number the previous week and the data doesn't show it, but I saw signs of greatness. And then next thing you know, I pick a long shot and he wins. And people go, well, why'd you pick that? It's like, well, I saw it. I thought it. I felt it. Right.
Mhm.
So for you, having not played, how heavily do you rely on the data? And when you're going through and you're putting things out, are you picking and letting it ride, or do you tend to do things live as well?
I am a very Brad kind of talked about this. I'm a very data-driven person with my approach. A lot of it is number-based and value-based, and where I'm finding the numbers and the value in the week. I do love what you talked about with live betting. I think that's the best people out there that bet outright. It is the most volatile market. The hold percentages are extremely high there. I always tend to think that the best value you can find in outright betting comes with the live betting outlook of it. So I think that's something that people don't do enough of with it. I'm probably a little bit different with it, Chris, where I end up taking an in tournament perspective with it. So one of the things that I think people overdo with it. So I'll give you two answers with this. One is people take the in tournament stats and completely overweigh it. So a golfer that somebody did not like pre-event, all of a sudden they gain, we'll just call it 5 strokes ball striking, and all of a sudden all the pre-tournament data goes out the window,
Yep.
and now this is the player that's going to play well for the rest of the week. That's not exactly how it works, and that's part of the problem there. The other thing is with it is people don't look at the pre-tournament research. So what I do as the week goes on is I incorporate and I infuse in both of those two things. So after round one, a small percentage of that weight goes into my pre-tournament model. After round two, a little bit higher percentage of the weight. So after 3 rounds of golf, you have about a 50-50 split. It's still more merged and infused in the direction of the pre-tournament stats. But that's for me where I'm trying to extract my value is with the in-tournament betting, whether that's the outrights that we're talking about or my bread and butter market, which would be the in-tournament matchups. You guys talked about a lot about matchups at the beginning of the show here, and I also had a really good matchup week last week, and I lost one matchup, Brad, and I saw that it was the matchup that you actually were on. I believe it was in round two with it. I had Brian Harmon over Ben On,
Yep.
and ended up losing by 1 stroke. That was the one matchup that I lost, but Harmon's profile was one of those things where pre-event the data loved him, and as I kept infusing in all of that in tournament statistics to the mix, Harmon just kept skyrocketing up my list. So I know you ended up betting him in different iterations. You talked about the scores on the next day. There are a lot of different avenues that you can attack. And I think, unfortunately, sometimes people get caught into this mix of they want the lottery ticket, they want the outright, they want the 100-to-1 name. That is not how, as a professional gambler, you make money. You make money on all these other markets. You make them through the matchups, the placements, any of those prop bets that you talked about
Yep.
of how you can find value. So that's obviously a really long-winded answer to give about how I go about my process. But at the end of the day, it's a very data-driven approach that leads me to my answers.
Love it.
No, I thought that was pretty good. I'm still kicking myself. Brian Harmon, you could have literally even bet him on the each way and got freaking paid by the end of the week, but I just took him day by day. Let's talk about this tournament here. And we'll start with the outright. Spencer, I'll go to you. Give me your favorite outright that you're playing this week and just a little reasoning why.
So when I ran this, it's a unique tournament. One of the things that I tried to find when I was trying to figure out how do I find value here is I graded all teams together, but I also graded all players individually. So
Okay.
one of the things I wanted to find is who are the upside targets that if you threw them with anybody, it would make a team naturally better? Because I do agree with like the general sentiment behind it to where if players have played together before, there is a natural chemistry that will come into play. But if you don't have that factor, I'm trying to figure out where can you have players that present a higher boost for you inside of a model or however you're trying to handicap this event. So very naturally, the best player that you could throw with anyone, Rory McIlroy. That's not going to be a shock to anybody there. Second was Colin Morikawa. Those are the two exact names that you would expect. The third name for me, which has been one of my darlings, it feels like for the last year or so, I've hit him multiple times at 100-to-1 at the US Open and then once again at Pebble Beach, was Wyndham Clark. So I took Wyndham Clark and Taylor Moore at 24-to-1. I think this is a really optimal pairing between two guys that can get hot with the flat stick and also present a chemistry together, at least from a statistical perspective, that really merges well with one another. So, I thought the market was a little bit lower on them than they should have been. These are two guys that have also found success in this event, not necessarily with one another because they haven't played, but we've seen them both compete to win this title with other players. To me, this might be the perfect combination of two guys that understand the tournament, understand what needs to be had with it. You throw the two of them together, and I really like their upside this week. The other thing I want to note just very quickly is I looked to find all teams that had players that were inside the top 45 of my model for both of the golfers. There were not that many teams that had that combination. This was one of the 8 or 9 teams that ended up fitting that bill there. So, for all the upside marks that I'm talking about with Wyndham Clark, Taylor Moore also holds his end on everything that I'm looking for this event.
Can't go wrong with, backing Mr. Wyndham Clark at any TPC course, right? Like he just models out at these Pete Dye courses so well. Taylor Moore is also another golfer who, this is not something you can actually measure with data, but I think he just takes tournaments very seriously, right? He's not going to go and play in this team event and say, well, we have a team event. I'm just going to go mess around and do whatever I have to do. No, he wants to get the job done. Two very serious golfers, two really good golfers in that pair. You have any thoughts on that one, Chris?
Honestly, I love it. I think that the amount of depth you went into to come up with that. I also think that it's going to come down to alternate shot for that pairing. I think in when they're playing their own ball, you can kind of get away with it because Wyndham keeps from the last month, let's say, he keeps showing these signs of brilliance, and then he'll be in the middle of the fairway and find a double bogey somehow right over the green, short side yourself, doesn't get up and down, double, and it derails his round. But having a partner, having someone like Taylor Moore that can be in that fairway, be on the green, and allow Clark to go after it. If he can stay out of trouble and alternate shot, I think they're going to 100% be there. Two really strong players, two proven winners. And if you look at the board, you can dismiss 50% of the people playing. Let's be
Yeah.
honest, right? So you're trying to find your value amongst the remaining 50% of teams. And yeah, I think that's a really good pick.
I'm gonna go with my first one, and this is gonna be my wild card. I'm gonna have a lot of data to back up a lot of the golfers, but this is just my absolute wild card, and I'm going with Carl Phillips and Michael Thorb Joinson at 45 to 1. So the first thing that I wanted to go with is a pairing that has players that are playing hot, possibly coming in here with wins or some contentions. Carl Phillips winning in Puerto Rico, Thorbs contending last week where they play Corrales. But also I wanted to add birdie makers. And even though Phillips really hasn't kind of scratched the surface of consistency yet, one thing we've noticed is he has these bursts, these sprints of really, really great golf mixed in with some bad rounds. He's ninth in birdie or better percentage at 27%. Really good at early scoring average. And why I thought that was really important or early scoring average was this is a team that's going to need to get hot and believe. Just like what Carl Phillips did in Puerto Rico. He got hot early and believed he could hold on with Thorbs also pumping it like crazy off the tee. I think that just makes life a little bit easier, right? Especially when you're playing alternate shot. Like if it just goes the right way, give Thorbs that driver in his hand, pump it out there. Phillips goes up there, puts one close, and Thorbs doesn't have to think about putting. And putting the putt is just it's so obsolete because it's a 3 to 5 footer. I think there's a ton of value here. But when I say there's a ton of value, I also say take that with a grain of salt because when I was thinking about pricing for them, I thought like plus 3,500 was fair. And then I went and looked at the market and there wasn't much plus 3,500 out there for them. Like there was some plus 3,800, some plus 4,000. So when I saw plus 4,500, sometimes you don't want to be that off on your number making, which kind of gives me a little pause, right? Like, I'm so far off, $10 off. Maybe I could be totally incorrect here, but I think we're going to get a ton of value on these guys.
Yeah, Thorpe is, I would argue, underachieving, underperforming this year. He came out firing last year. He almost won the John Deere. He looked amazing. When it came down the stretch, he just couldn't get it done. But he's huge fall off this year. If he was playing the way that we know he can play, teamed up with Phillips, who's looked honestly great. He looked really good on Friday at last week at the Heritage.
Yeah.
He's got a wind under his belt. He just bombs the ball. Those two I could see it happening. I just think that if Thorpe was playing the way that we know he can, that number would
Yeah.
be a lot less. For me, I'm gonna start with my flyer, and I touched on it at the top of the show. And what I was looking for was form, looking for guys who can get the ball off the tee, get it out there, give themselves a ton of wedges. These two guys played junior together. They are both from Europe. One is doing extremely well or has done well on the DP World Tour, and his brother's shown significant form this year. One, he was right there in Mexico following the first and second round. He looked really good at Valspar. I saw him in person. I'm going to go with the Paul brothers at plus 9,000. I think the fact that they are related, they obviously know each other extremely well. I don't think there's going to be any, apologizing when a shot isn't hit the way it needs to be hit. I just think they get the ball off the tee far. I think they have that teamwork from playing together for all those years. And at that number, there's a lot of guys that honestly don't have the same pedigree that are lower odds than them. So I'm going to roll with that one.
Yeah, the Paul brothers. I don't have much to say about the Paul brothers. I do love the fact that they play together. They've played this format together with their boys at their local clubs that they're members at. If they know how to play alternate shot, I mean, if they haven't played alternate shot, then what are they doing, right? They haven't played best ball together. What are they doing? I think being that pairing that has the chemistry, we'll see this also later, probably in the show with another group. I mean, at 90 to 1, can't deny it.
Yeah, I think they're an interesting pairing. Those were two names, and there's a lot of different ways to handicap this, but those were two golfers that, when I looked at just pure birdie making potential, they were inside of the top 25 of almost every single one of the statistical categories that I was looking at. And I mean, that was one of the big things. And I know you both have mentioned it now. Birdie making is going to be huge, specifically when you look at the best ball formats. You're going to have to find golfers that can produce a score on Thursday and Saturday. It's all about on Thursday and Saturday, make as many birdies as you can. And then Friday and Sunday, it's that safety that Chris talked about of
Yeah.
let's not make mistakes. Let's keep ourselves in the tournament. And you got to find the middle of those two answers there. And I have another team. I don't know if we're giving another name or not, but it
Yeah, go
kind of
ahead.
fits that same mold of what you two had just talked about of this boom or bust profile that comes into play. So I was very intrigued to see this number because, Brad, you just talked about this on Phillips and Thorbjornsen of your numbers being about 10 points off. My numbers were about 20 points lower on this particular team, which is always an interesting return. But there was a 55 to 1 early on in the week if you could find Jesper Svensson and Nicholas Norgard. One of the things that I found when I ran the strokes gain dispersion that I do. So essentially what that is I'm trying to find the core requirements of players that either win the tournament or in this case, teams that have won the tournament. And then I run it down the board of top fives, top tens, top 20s, missed cuts, made cuts. What are the strokes gain dispersions and where do you need your biggest increase to actually win an event? And what I found when running those data points is you get about a 20% dispersion output from top five and winners from strokes gained off the tee. That's compared to about 15% for people that make the cut. So about a 5% bigger importance that comes into play on strokes gained purely off the tee if you're trying to compete to win this tournament. You look at Svensson and Norgard here, two elite drivers of the ball, two elite scores between the par five ranges and a lot of the weighted scoring totals that I was looking for. I worry about the alternate shot. It's going to have to be a game to where they're going to have to do this correctly. And that's asking a lot of these teams because you can run the data points. And I can tell you that if we're just looking, Nicholas Norgard should have the long irons from 200 plus yards, and Svensson's short game and around the green ability has the ability to salvage a lot of that. But if they don't look and they don't go in that area, things change very quickly. So you're putting a lot of hope that they actually do the right thing in these spots. But to me, this was a team that I was not expecting to like. These are not two golfers that I back very often, but they just skyrocketed up my list. And if you look at books right now, they have been one of the big movers. I believe you can still grab that in the 50, 55 to 1 range at that particular book, but a lot of these shops out there have shrunken that number into the 30s now. And I think that's legitimate sharp movement there.
Yeah, solid pairing, guys who are birdie makers. You can't go wrong, right? Like top 5 in birdie average, top 10 for, and this is both of these guys in birdie or better percentage. Great price on those guys.
I very often this year you've seen both of those guys start quick on Thursdays, right? Here they
Yeah.
are again, here they go again. But then they always run into trouble the following day, right? So I think, like you said, if they can get through the alternate shot, they're going to be there. They weren't on my list, and honestly, they weren't on my radar. But now that you said it, it makes so much sense, and I'll probably add it. I love them first round
Yes.
because they are birdie machines. And if
Yeah.
they can, where they normally make a bogey and probably ruin those chances, the other one picks them up. I mean, those guys, they could go low. So that I don't know what their number is for first round, but take it here, Spencer. That's a nice find on there. I like that one.
It's 50 to 1 for a first round leader bet on them.
Ooh,
I like that
I
a
like that.
lot.
Let me tell you about a team. Let me tell you about a guy who loves being on a team. I don't think there's anybody who loves his teammates more, even when it's an individual based tournament, like your every day, every week PGA Tour event. That's Mr. Adam Hadwin. I've never seen anybody celebrate his peers, his fellow Canadians more than others. So I'm going Team Canada, 35 to 1. It's not just because they're good teammates, but when I built my comp course model, there was only one outside of the favorites. There's only one team that fit with both golfers inside the top 10. Um, again, that's outside of Shane Lowry and Rory McIlroy. And that was Adam Hadwin and Nick Taylor. So I went to go dig to see, were they just getting like super skewed data? Because TPC Louisiana, obviously Adam Hadwin has great history here. Obviously Nick Taylor has great history here being teammates, runner up in top 10 finish. But then I went and I looked and I was like, no, like there's pretty good data at PGA National, pretty good data at the Zozo, pretty good data at TPC Scottsdale. And I was like, all right, maybe there is a reason why they keep finishing inside the top 10. And maybe there's a reason why they're contending. And I also wanted to see, like, was Adam Hadwin in good form when he came into these tournaments? He was probably my biggest wild card, right? Like Adam Hadwin, was he the guy who came into good form? Because if you look, Adam Hadwin has gained more strokes uh, on average at this course than Nick Taylor, even though I think Nick Taylor's playing better golf. No, there's no correlation, not statistically, of Adam Hadwin coming to this tournament with great form. And I mean, I'm even going back to like 2016, riddled with missed cuts, with bad performances. And then he comes and plays Zurich, plays well. Like happened in 2016, he had 2 missed cuts out of 3 events. 19 had 2 missed cuts. 2022, same thing. And you know, there's no correlation, but I just think this course fits his eye really well with how Nick Taylor's playing as well. Another guy who can go out there and make some birdies, a guy who can compete, a real competitor. I thought this was a no-brainer at 35 to 1.
Yeah, they if you watched what's the show on Netflix? Swing, something swing?
Full swing?
Yeah, full swing. They actually covered them, right? Because they were right on the bubble to play in the President's Cup in Montreal.
Yep.
And I think that had an effect on them. Like they were right there, and I just don't think that they did what needed to be done. But maybe because that was the pressure.
Yep.
Really, no pressure at all this year. Just swing it, right? Like just get out there and play some golf. Similar to what we discussed, it's guys who you're comfortable with, guys who have your back. They know their games better than they know themselves, honestly. So yeah, I mean at that number, hard to find two winners. Because again, a lot of the people win equity, right? We look at that board. There's a lot of people who have never won, and just because there's 2 people involved doesn't mean it makes it any easier. I definitely do see a first-time winner this week, but I do like them too. Nick Taylor doesn't get any respect anywhere he goes, so I wouldn't be surprised to see him at the top.
Yeah, that was a team that I bet last year. I believe they were 40 to 1. I had a two-man card last year of them, and then I ended up betting Rory and Lowry at 8 to 1, which how times have changed now. Fast forward a year and all these Rory prices with it. But a very solid combination together, very high ceiling between the two. I agree with what you said, Brad. I do think it ultimately comes down to what kind of form or at this course form, if we want to call it that, Adam Hadwin can bring to the mix, because he has been
Yeah.
very boomer bust this year.
Yeah. Very boomer bust. That's what scares me the most about this, right? And I was like, how low do I want to go? And I'm just going to bring up another golfing pair, right, with Sahith and Aaron Rai. Like I did not bet them. I looked at them and then I was like, I mean, at 22 to 1, I don't know if I can get there with how Sahith is playing. He hasn't been good. So, but let's get to the placement market. If you want to kick things off for us, Chris.
Yeah, so I'm gonna do 2. So I'm gonna give an absolute flyer to win, but I do like their placement as well because I just think it's significant value. These are guys who have played together for a handful of years. They tied for second last year. Um, I saw him at the Valspar in person. He makes a lot of birdies. He's a fantastic putter. I think his teammate is really going to be the flyer to see what they can do, but he again also bombs it off the tee. So I think that he'll be in good positions to kind of go after it. And that's Brem and Hubbard. You can get them top 20 at plus 450. So they're 220 to 1 to win. They finished second last year. And like I said, they've played together in this event 3 times and they have really good history. So again, absolute flyer. If you want to sprinkle on that for them to win, probably won't see them winning, but wouldn't be surprised to see them fall within the top 20 at plus 450.
A really good price. I went with chalk again. I went with Nick Taylor, Adam Hadwin. I mean, when you have back-to-back top 10 finishes, how can I not go with these guys to finish top 20 at what was that plus 115, and then you can get top 10 on these guys with ties included too, which I thought was pretty nice at plus 280. Do you have a placement that you like, Spencer?
Can I give a matchup instead?
Absolutely. Any prop.
So one of the first matchups that, and I usually do not lay this much juice in any matchup, specifically on one of these wonky type of events like this. But the very first bet that I made this week was Ryan Gerard and Danny Walker minus 138 over Matthew Pavon and Victor Perez. So I've talked a lot this week about trying to find profiles here of teammates that are very consistent in my model, players that are inside of the top 45 in different iterations of my model, different ways that I can push them up the board. And there was one set of teammates, and this is just from an outright number, that were outside of 50 to 1 on the board that had both players in my model, or I guess outside of 55 to 1 on the board, I should say, that had both players in my model that graded inside of the top 45 for birdie or better percentage. That's Walker and Gerard here. I think they're one of the more underrated teams. I don't know if I didn't bet them to win this tournament. I don't know if they necessarily win this event, but I think this is a really nice situation to bet them. And we've seen this number drift a little bit since yesterday, but I think Walker and Gerard are a very nice pairing with one another.
I mean, Walker looked like $1 million at the Players. I was wondering, who is this kid? Right?
Yeah.
He looked amazing. And Gerard has been fantastic. I mean, over the last 5 weeks, I mean, he's a top 5 player.
Yeah,
So
he is.
100%. Pavon, I mean, I don't even know what to say about that guy. I have been on him so many times because we hit him last year when he won the Farmers. And ever since then, he's had a soft spot in my heart. And he tends to always start quick as well. Like I always think, oh, okay, this is going to be the week. He's a first round leader and he starts well. But then Pavon plays like Pavon used to. And yeah, I mean, I totally support that pick.
I feel like there's always a text coming in that says, "Oh my God, look at Pavone," and then we're like, "Yeah,
3 under through 5 and then finishes +3 on the day.
yeah, like, yeah, right." Let's go to the first round leader market. And I'm kind of embarrassed because I went very chalk this week. I have 2 first round leaders. I'll just give one first, and I went with JT Poston and Keith Mitchell. Keith Mitchell has the best Thursday scoring average in the PGA Tour this season. That says enough, right? He's already hit us 2 chopped first round leaders, 3 chopped first round leaders, whatever it was so
Yep,
far this season. JT Poston, another guy who hasn't started strong, but he's playing some really good golf. I cannot be on these guys week in and week out in first round leader market, and then they come in their team together in alternate scoring. I mean, not alternate scoring in best ball, where literally one guy can go out there and have a double bogey to ruin it, but the other guy birdies and we get the birdie to keep and not be on them. I took him to the each way market too, 5 places. I had to 20, it was like 22 to 1.
for sure.
Uh, whatever, dude. Like these are my guys that I love betting on, and I'm just gonna keep doing it when they're paired freaking together.
Hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Mitchell's been hot. He's a first round guy. Yeah, he's not going to be there on Sunday because he just finds a way to blow it up either on Friday or Saturday. Poston's Mr. Pete Dye, right? We had him last week, I think first round as well, but obviously JT went nuts. But having those two guys together, Mitchell down the fairway, Poston sticking them, amazing putter. I have seen no problem with that. I'm going to go next. And you know this, Brad, because I brought it up on the show before. I love to find value in the first round leader market when I see a team that is lower to win, but they're odds for first round leader are much higher. You can actually get Novak and Griffin at plus 10, yeah, 10 to 1 more on first round. So they're sitting around the plus 3,000 mark to be first round leader. And I think that Novak's just hungry. I think that coming off of last week, people would say, oh, he's not going to have the energy. He's not going to be drained. But if there's an event where you have a teammate to kind of pick you up and push you, I think that's this week. So I see him coming in, keeping that form. He looked amazing. Bogey avoidance is great. He's going to be going after pins. And we know Ben Griffin, that boy can go low. That boy can make birdies. So I do like them to win, but at plus 2,000, it's a little bit on the low side for me. But I do like them to go out firing on Thursday at plus 3,000.
Griffin specifically, when you put him on similar green complexes, he is always the highest riser for me when you put him on any courses that look like this. So they're an interesting name to keep in mind. And I kind of agree with you, Brad, to where I am a lot chalkier than I would like to be on the first round leader bets here. I've talked a lot about finding two players that are inside of the top 45 for me in birdie or better percentage on both of the ends there. I considered Theegala and Rai through different markets. I didn't get there in the outright, didn't get here for the first round leader. The one that I did end up going with, and Svensson and Norgard are going to be one of the names that we talked about at 50 to 1. But the one that I did go with that's a little chalkier is I went with Hoagie and Horschel at 28 to 1.
Ooh,
So
nice.
I talked about this at the beginning of the show. Players that were the most unique, that added the most value to a team. One was Rory, just to backtrack to that. Two was Colin. Three was Wyndham. Fourth for me, which was the surprise, was Tom Hoagie. And I think it's just his approach play. And that's a little bit more for alternate shot that's going to come into play. I think that's where he can really use his advantage there. But two golfers that can make birdies. I think Horschel's playing better golf than perception right now. I really like this pairing with each other. This is the one team that I don't have an outright on right now that I'm very tempted as this number continues to drift to want to go in that direction before this week comes to an end.
Listen, if they our first round leader, I hope they're wire to wire because I do have an outright on them as well. I'll go ahead with another. I only had two first round leaders, and it's Shane Lowry and Rory McIlroy. If you just think about any type of model I've made, has had Rory and Shane inside the top 10. And it's for good reason. They're the defending champs for good reason, right? Like two really great ball strikers, two birdie getters, two really good golfers. And I think this year, over the last few iterations of this event, is the most distance between that top team and then the guys following. And if they just go out there and they play with their A stuff, they're going to be in that top 5 in the first round. So I went with those guys. It's really chalk, but 11 to 1. And
It's
if I'm going to
chalk,
win
but not
two,
really, right? Because they're plus 350, plus 360 to
yeah,
win, and they're plus 1,100 to be first round leader. In a tournament that they won last year, they went out and were 61. They were winning last year after round one. So really, I mean, I think Rory is going after Scotty. I think that last year, Scotty's year, lit a fire under Rory. Like I see it. You can see it when he walks. You can see he's focused. You can see that he didn't talk to Bryson on Sunday. He's just got like tiger vision right now. And I think that regardless of what the tournament is, he just wants to win, and he's just going to be cutthroat about it. So I would not be surprised to see them go wire to wire and just take this tournament by storm for sure.
yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, the way Rory's
they're
playing, sorry to cut you off. The way Rory's playing, like, there's a legitimate threat that he can win every single tournament that he's playing now because not only is he winning the tournaments where they're good setups for him, he's winning the tournaments where there's bad setups for him. And that's just a dangerous kind of golfer.
Yeah, when he won at Pebble, I mean, that's kind of the prime example of a course that I didn't necessarily think he was going
Yep.
to win at. And what I was going to say is, and you just mentioned this, Brad. When you look last year, I know the consensus in the market was that Xander and Cantlay were the favorites. My model had Rory and Lowry ever so slightly favored over them. You look at this year; they're 3 times more likely to be any other team inside of my model. And that second team would be Morikawa and Kitayama. I do think the Morikawa and Kitayama price is a little overinflated always because of Morikawa, but look, I mean, it's Rory right now. I agree with the sentiment that Rory is going to go in full gusto mode this year and do whatever he can to get as many wins as he can. So anything makes sense. And I do think it's an interesting price that you can get an 11-1 when that's a 3.5, 4-1 to win this tournament everywhere.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's not to say that, Lowry's a pushover, right? He's having a great year as well. Like last year they came into this, he had no form. Like this literally brought him back from the dead. He got his 2-year exemption. He was thrilled. He hadn't won in a long time. He hadn't won since the Open, right?
Yep.
But this year, I mean, you've seen his name on leaderboards, and not to mention that, I mean, look at Rory. I think it's a huge, huge favorite this week.
Yeah,
Yep.
one team in my model has both players inside of the top 10 from an overall rank. It would be very naturally this team, which is how you end up being 3 times more likely to win than everybody else.
Well, that said, one final interview question. I'm gonna do it different since you live in Las Vegas. Okay. I want you to design or build the perfect meal. You can stop at a different restaurant for anything, whether that's a beverage, appetizer, entree, or dessert. Spencer, go ahead and build your perfect meal, stopping at whatever locations you want in Las Vegas.
There are some really good steakhouses in this town. I always my favorite sectors of food would probably be either a steak, like steak and lobster. There's some good Italian restaurants that I like, Chinese food. Those are probably the three areas. If you mix those three together, you're gonna get sick. So I'll try to keep this as clean as possible. But I mean, there's like this steakhouse Nora's that's very, or that's not what it's called. It's I can't think of the name right now on the spot. Food questions always trip me up for whatever reason, but steak and lobster, Caesar salad, and then any sort of chocolate for dessert. I have a sweet tooth
Yeah.
you could just throw a pile of chocolate on a plate, melt it down, and I would drink out of it.
Do you like those chocolate molten with the molten chocolate in the middle, like the brownies or cakes, and there's molten chocolate in the middle? That's your kind of.
Oh, yeah, I have a whole packet of that in the freezer right now that you'll heat up with it. It's just anything chocolate is just it is. I don't weigh very much, but the amount of chocolate that I eat, you would think that I weigh like triple the weight.
That's funny. I actually don't eat chocolate. I don't even know what chocolate tastes like, but an apple pie, I know what an apple pie tastes like. I have a sweet potato pie and pound cake from Easter sitting there waiting to be eaten. But anyways, thank you for joining us, Spencer. Can you tell everyone where to find you and what you're working on?
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter at Toff Sports. You can get all of my work this year over at Rotoballer. All the models, the numbers that I've talked about can be found there. Write a ton of articles for the website. I essentially go through the board from all your DFS needs, all your outright betting needs, all your matchups, one and done. Everything that you can find is over there. And then I just started a new show called King of the Draft that is over on Mayo Media Network. It films every single Tuesday at 6 o'clock Pacific time, 9 o'clock Eastern time. We go through, my partner Joel Schreck and I, Draftmaster Flex on Twitter. We go through and you can draft against us. It's a snake style draft where we take DraftKings pricing. It's like a fantasy football draft. We draft all of our teams that fit within a $50,000 budget, and we do that every single weekend. So it's always the two of us, sometimes guests. I would love to have you two on at some point to come draft against us, and then the audience gets to draft their own teams. So it's a very interactive show that allows the ability to create unique lineups that you may not think about, because once a player is taken, they're off the board. You don't get to pick them again. So it's a very natural way to just create unique builds that end up coming into play. So would love for everybody to check that out, and hopefully I can get you two on at some point.
Absolutely, man. I'm always down to
Love
talk
that.
golf. So whenever you need me, just let me know. Everyone watching, first and foremost, if you're watching on YouTube, smash the subscribe, the like button, ring the bell. If you're listening in podcast form, download and rate us. I'm Brad Thomas here with Chris Mills, Spencer Aguiar. This is the No BS Golf Show. Take care.